How much of this, Mr. Seaga, would you take any responsibility for creating?
Me? I created a community which was a model. It was designed as a model based upon the research work that I had done in the years before I became involved in political life. To create a community in which there were social services from the prenatal period, family planning, etc., all the way through to infant schools, creche, the infant school, the primary school, the secondary school, and then in a huge community center, the largest in the island, all the programs that you would want of a cultural nature, dance, music, fashion shows, drama, everything. And that was Tivoli Gardens.
That was a model you had in mind?
No, not had in mind. I created it. And having created it, it lasted for 3 or 4 years, because in that period of time, there was, the JLP was still in office.
Let's take a break.
This was in the late 60s.
Let's take a break and come back. The model that is Tivoli Gardens and what has gone wrong over all of these years. Mr. Seaga is laying the blame squarely at the feet of Prime Minister Bruce Golding. When we come back, more on Impact. Back with you on Impact. Thank you so much for joining and for staying with us in this difficult time here in Jamaica. We continue to have joining us former Prime Minister Edward Seaga, former Member of Parliament as well for West Kingston. Mr. Seaga, I begin by putting it to you that the Tivoli model went horribly wrong.
The model did not go wrong. The circumstances and the environment in which it existed because of what took place in the 1970s distorted what was the original intention. When I built it, I even had a little police force of 2 persons in the part of the community area. And the Minister of Home Affairs at the time, Roy McNeil, said he had to close it down because I had no work to do. And had it not been a case of the community being attacked, we would have continued to go on to enjoy the development of the young people in social and cultural activity, educational things, which was what it was intended to do. But it was thrown out of gear in 1970s because people wouldn't come out to functions. They wouldn't come out to the sessions for training, etc., etc. And although a lot of things still went on, because we had Babsy Grange there at the time who was carrying the cultural activities, etc., it was not at full speed, so to speak. Now, that is not the fault of the model. That is the fault of the pressures that were brought to bear on the model from external forces, political forces.
So I want to understand how these figures were created in Tivoli and elsewhere, and how does somebody like Dudus ascend to such a place of prominence within the construct that you had?
Every community has people like Dudus. Every community has members or youngsters who are happy to find somebody that they can work with in gang activities, because that's their only affiliation. They don't have that affiliation at home. And they're not necessarily athletes who can find affiliation on a team. They have to find it somewhere else. They don't have work. And so they find it in gang activity. And so as you look at the communities all around, you find that there are replicas of that. Now, to the extent that this one grew more and was bigger, and I don't know that it was so, because in Spanish Town they had some very powerful gangs operating there. It is a matter of the extent to which the circumstances allowed them to do so.
Yes.
Now, when I left there in 2005, they were what one would call a medium-sized gang. They became what they are now since then.
No, Mr. Seaga.
No.
How is that possible?
You must listen to me.
I'm listening.
Okay, please.
Yes.
Listen to me. I didn't give them any multi-million-dollar contracts.
You gave them legitimacy.
No. I didn't give them any multi-million-dollar contracts which would enrich them to the point where they became so powerful that they can do without a member of parliament, and therefore they're on their own in the pace they want to grow
Yes.
and what they want to do. I didn't do that.
Who did that?
The present member of parliament allowed it to happen because his philosophy in how you run a constituency is the member of parliament goes to parliament to argue on national and international affairs, and the constituency takes care of its other needs. That constituency can't run that way.
Yes.
That constituency is run on care and love and attention and sustenance. And I gave it that for over 40 years. And you can't walk away from that and have somebody come in with a hands-off position.
But you
just a minute. I told Bruce that he should not take the seat. I didn't want him to take that seat because I know the man, and I know he couldn't handle it.
He couldn't handle what? Dudus?
He couldn't handle fixation with Dudus, and I don't.
I thought Tivoli was much about Dudus and not much more.
Well, you see, you're part of those who have an entirely wrong perspective.
Please correct
He
me.
couldn't handle a constituency which required a lot of time, which required a lot of attention, getting to know people and people knowing you and bonding with the people and the people bonding with you. That was how I ran Tivoli. It was one family. You have often heard me say that Tivoli was West Kingston was my extended family.
Yes.
That's how I refer to them. Now, on that basis, I knew he couldn't do it.
Who could then? Who could?
Babsy Grange. And that's who I wanted to succeed me there.
And you told the party that?
I told him. I told him that when the time came for selection. And there was a temporary agreement that she would give up her Spanish Town seat and Golding would go there, which he was where he was before.
Yes.
He left the Labour Party. And it would be a night Swiss because Babsy actually was born in West Kingston and grew up there, went to school, etc. It didn't work out that way. It didn't work out that way because the same boys that are now the cause of his problems were the ones who insisted that he must be the representative in West Kingston because according to them, Yasson are the headquarters. All the other JLP prime ministers have West Kingston constituents as their constituency. And if you don't, you only have one term there. Every other person who was running West Kingston only had one term.
You had
10.
10. Isn't it the case, Mr. Seaga, that you never really appreciated Mr. Golding's style of leadership, whatever that style was?
We have differed on the objectives of leadership. But in his case, and I make no secret of it because I've said so, my assessment of his ability as a leader fell short. There's no question about it. I didn't think he was ready to be a leader. I thought he needed more time to mature into the position. He vacillated a lot. He couldn't make up his mind, not ready for taking strong decisions, depend too much on the last person who spoke with him, etc., etc. Certain weaknesses, correctable, but he didn't have that position at that time. And that is why I really didn't want to see him in that position, in that constituency, which would take up a lot of his time. It wasn't to be so.
In light of
and
all
therefore he got himself into a problem where with the wrong seat and the demands on his time and the other things that he has had to deal with, he just can't handle them all.
Yes. And in light of all that has happened and the state of public emergency and the fallout in the international media, particularly with the United States and so forth, you lay it all at Mr. Golding's feet.
You lay it all at the leader's feet. The buck stops here. Doesn't stop anywhere. It stops here. If I'm the leader, it stops there. So whoever is a leader has to take that responsibility. But in this case, he identified himself as the leader in stopping the warrant from going to court to get the declaration, in stopping and intervening in the process by which the court could have gone to court to get a declaration, which he didn't want to do at first, but he had no right to interfere in it. And then because we then had to serve a warrant on court, and having served the warrant, we had to arrest him, and he couldn't be arrested because he had a show of strength, a show of might, which never materialized, but caused his security forces to go into the community by the hundreds based upon a state of emergency that he declared. He declared that.
On the advice of the security forces, he says. Was he misguided?
I don't know what he used, whether it was an advice of the security forces.
Yeah.
Huh? I know of a case when Michael Manley declared a state of emergency in 1976. He said that. And then in the commission of inquiry that took place after that, the two leaders of arms of the security forces, the police and the military, both denied it. One said he never knew anything of the commission of inquiry of the state of emergency until he read it in the papers, and the other one said he repeatedly told the government it wasn't necessary. So I don't trust any information like that.